The blood behind the roses, the true horror of Valentine's Day. Every February 14th you buy roses, write cards, celebrate love. But do you know what you're really celebrating? The brutal execution of a priest who defied an empire. The torture, the blood, the beheading. This is the story they don't tell you when you hand someone a heart-shaped box. This is the true horror of Valentine's Day. The Emperor's Decree. Rome, 269 AD. Winter. Emperor Claudius II, Claudius the Cruel, had a problem. His legions were losing battles. His soldiers were deserting. The Roman Empire was crumbling at its edges, and he needed warriors who would fight without hesitation, without looking back. He believed he knew why his armies were weak. Love. Married men made poor soldiers, Claudius reasoned. They were distracted, homesick. They hesitated in battle, thinking of wives and children waiting at home. A soldier in love was a soldier half committed to Rome. So on a cold February day in 269 AD, Claudius issued a decree that would change history. Marriage is forbidden for young men of fighting age. The order went out across the empire. No weddings, no unions. Love was now a crime against the state. For most priests, this was the law. Unjust, perhaps, but the law nonetheless. But there was one priest who refused to obey. His name was Valentine, the priest in the shadows. Valentine was a Christian priest in a pagan empire. Christianity was still illegal, still dangerous. Believers met in secret, in the catacombs beneath Rome, in hidden rooms where the emperor's eyes couldn't see. Valentine had spent his life defying Rome's gods. Now he would defy Rome's emperor. When young couples came to him, soldiers and their sweethearts, desperate to marry before deployment, Valentine didn't turn them away. He married them in secret, late at night, underground, by candlelight, whispering vows that Rome had outlawed. He knew the penalty. He knew what happened to those who defied Claudius. But Valentine believed that love was worth the risk. He was wrong about the risk. The knock at midnight. They came for him on a winter night. The Praetorian Guard, Claudius's personal soldiers. They'd been watching, waiting, building their case against the priest who thought he could defy the empire. Valentine was arrested in the middle of performing a wedding ceremony. The couple he was marrying scattered into the darkness. They escaped. Valentine did not. He was dragged through the streets of Rome in chains, taken to the emperor's palace, thrown into a cell beneath the Palatine Hill. The charges? Defying imperial decree, performing illegal marriages, practicing an illegal religion. The penalty? Death. The interrogation. Before execution, there would be interrogation. Claudius himself wanted to understand this priest. Why would a man choose death over obedience? What made love more important than the empire? The emperor offered Valentine a choice. Renounce Christianity, serve the Roman gods, stop performing marriages, live. Valentine refused. Some accounts say he tried to convert the emperor. Standing there in chains, facing death, Valentine preached about a love greater than Rome, a god more powerful than Claudius. The emperor was not amused. Valentine was returned to his cell, but his trial wasn't over. The judge's daughter. Valentine was brought before Judge Asterius, a powerful Roman official who would decide his fate. The trial should have been simple. The evidence was clear. Valentine had broken the law. The sentence would be death. But something unexpected happened. Asterius had a daughter, a young woman who had been blind since birth. The judge mentioned this to Valentine, perhaps as conversation, perhaps as a test. According to legend, Valentine prayed for her, laid his hands near her eyes, asked his God for a miracle, and she could see. For the first time in her life, the judge's daughter saw light, color, her father's face. Asterius fell to his knees. He converted to Christianity on the spot, released all Christian prisoners in his household, destroyed his pagan idols. But Valentine still faced the emperor's wrath. And Claudius did not believe in miracles. The final letter. On the night before his execution, February 13th, 270 AD, Valentine wrote a letter. Some say it was to the judge's daughter, the girl whose sight he'd restored. Some say it was to another young woman who had visited him in prison, bringing him food and comfort. The letter was brief, tender, a final message from a man who had chosen love over life. He signed it, "From your Valentine." Those words, written by a condemned man in a Roman prison cell hours before his death, would echo through history. They would become the most repeated phrase in the world, written billions of times across 2,000 years. But Valentine would never know. February 14th, 270 AD. They came for him at dawn. Valentine was taken from his cell, marched through the streets of Rome one final time, brought to a place of execution outside the city walls. The method of execution: beheading. But first, there would be torture. The Romans were experts at prolonging death, at making examples. Valentine was beaten with clubs, stoned, tortured for hours. He refused to renounce his faith. He refused to apologize for the marriages he'd performed. He refused to beg for mercy. Finally, as the sun reached its peak on February 14th, 270 AD, the executioner raised his sword. Valentine, the priest who had defied an empire for love, was beheaded. His body was buried on the Via Flaminia, the road north of Rome. The spot would later become a shrine, then a church. Pilgrims would visit for centuries, praying at the tomb of the man who died for love. But Rome tried to forget him. Rome failed. The curse of Claudius. Here's what the history books often leave out. 1 year after Valentine's execution, Emperor Claudius II, Claudius the Cruel, died. Not in battle, not of old age, of plague. The plague of Cyprian swept through Rome in 270 AD, killing thousands. The emperor who had banned love, who had executed a priest for performing marriages, died screaming in agony as his body broke down from disease. Some called it divine justice. Some called it coincidence. But here's the thing. Claudius's logic was wrong anyway. Banning marriage didn't strengthen his armies. Rome continued to fall. Within 2 centuries, the empire would collapse completely. The soldiers Claudius kept from marriage, they deserted anyway. They died anyway. They lost anyway. Love wasn't Rome's weakness. Rome's cruelty was. The Christianization. For 200 years after Valentine's death, Christians remembered him quietly, secretly. His feast day, February 14th, was observed in the catacombs, in hidden churches, by people who understood what he died for. Then in 496 AD, Pope Gelasius I made it official. February 14th would be St. Valentine's Day across all of Christendom. The Roman Empire had killed Valentine. The Roman Catholic Church made him a saint. But even the Church didn't fully understand what they were celebrating. The forgotten horror. Today, February 14th is hearts and flowers, chocolate and champagne, romantic dinners and greeting cards. Somewhere along the way, we forgot. We forgot the prison cell. We forgot the torture. We forgot the beheading. We forgot that, "From your Valentine," were the last words of a man who would be dead by sunrise. When you sign a card, "From your Valentine," this year, you're signing with the words of a condemned priest who chose death over obedience. When you celebrate Valentine's Day, you're celebrating the anniversary of an execution. When you give someone roses on February 14th, you're commemorating the day Rome beheaded a man for believing that love was stronger than empire. And maybe, in a dark way, that's exactly what we should be celebrating. The legacy. Because Valentine won, Rome fell, the empire crumbled. Claudius is remembered as a footnote, a cruel emperor among many. But Valentine? Valentine's name is spoken billions of times every February 14th. His defiance outlived the empire that killed him. His belief that love was worth dying for became the foundation of the world's most celebrated holiday. The blood has been washed away. The torture has been forgotten. The horror has been replaced with hearts and candy. But if you look closely, if you really think about what you're celebrating, you can still see it. In Rome, there's still a church at the place where Valentine was buried, the Basilica of St. Valentine. People visit, leave flowers, pray for love. The spot where a man was beheaded for performing illegal marriages is now a shrine to romance. That's not irony, that's victory. So tonight, when you see Valentine's Day decorations, the hearts, the cupids, the roses, remember what's underneath. Remember the priest who defied an empire. Remember the torture, the prison cell, the execution at dawn. Remember that love was once a crime punishable by death. And remember that one man decided love was worth dying for. Happy Valentine's Day. Remember why it's written in blood.